I live in a small apartment on the third floor of an old building in Los Angeles. Nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom with a tiny balcony that overlooks a street full of coffee shops, gas stations, and a 24-hour diner that never seems to close. It's the kind of neighborhood where people mind their business. You recognize faces, but you don't really know their names. I've been here for a few years now, and one thing you learn quickly about California: earthquakes happen. A lot. Most of them are nothing, just small tremors, little shakes that barely last a few seconds. You feel the floor move slightly, maybe see the hanging lights sway, and that's it. People don't even react anymore, it's just part of life here. So when I felt the first shake that night, I didn't think much of it. It was around midnight and I was lying on my couch, scrolling through my phone. The room was quiet, just the soft hum of my ceiling fan spinning above me. Then, out of nowhere, a short jolt. Like someone had kicked to the bottom of the building. I barely reacted, just another tremor. Then, a second one, this time, stronger. The glass of water on my coffee table trembled. My lamp wobbled. The TV remote slid a little to the side. I sat up. Then, boom! A deep, heavy noise from inside the walls, like something was shifting inside them. The whole building shook violently for a few seconds. My ceiling light swung wildly. Dishes rattled in the kitchen. Outside, I could hear the sound of car alarms going off. And then, silence. For a moment, I just sat there, frozen, my heart racing. The air felt heavy, like the room itself was holding its breath. Then, from the hallway, voices. I got up and opened my apartment door. The hallway was dimly lit, the flickering yellow light making everything look eerie. People were stepping out of their apartments, confused, whispering. Some were rubbing their eyes, still half asleep. Others were holding their phones, checking Twitter or news alerts. A man from 2 doors down, some guy I've seen a few times but never spoken to, stepped out barefoot, his hair messy. "That was a big one," he muttered, looking around. A woman in a bathrobe clutched her phone. Was that an aftershock? Or is there more coming? No one had answers. Then the stairwell door burst open, and an older guy, maybe in his 50s, rushed in. He was breathing heavily, clearly panicked. "I just came from outside," he said, his voice shaky. There's something weird. The street is..." He stopped, looking around at all of us. "You guys still feel it?" That's when I noticed it. Even though the shaking had stopped, the floor was still vibrating. Faint, so faint that if I stood still, I could almost convince myself it wasn't real. But it was there, a low, steady hum beneath my feet. A woman near the stairwell frowned. "I don't feel anything." But I did, and I could tell, so did the older guy. We looked at each other, both realizing the same thing. The earthquake was over, but the ground hadn't stopped moving, and then bang! A loud, deep sound from below us, like something was shifting underneath the building. The lights flickered, someone screamed, then silence again. A cold, unnatural silence. I don't remember much after that, just the panic, the rush of people grabbing their things and running downstairs, wanting to be anywhere but inside that building. I remember stepping onto the street, looking around, seeing cracks in the pavement that weren't there before. But what I remember most is the feeling. Even now, weeks later, when I'm alone in my new apartment across town, I still feel it. That tiny, almost unnoticeable vibration beneath my feet. Like the earthquake never really ended. Like something is still moving deep under the city. They say aftershocks happen within minutes, maybe hours after an earthquake. A day or two at most. So tell me, how does an aftershock happen 3 months later? The earthquake itself wasn't anything special. It hit around midnight, a sudden jolt, strong but quick. It shook my apartment, knocked a few books off the shelf, made my heart race for a second. But it was over before I could even process it. No damage, no panic. Just another California quake. 3 months later, I was in bed, half asleep, when I felt it. A slow, deep shake beneath me. Not violent, just wrong. It wasn't like a regular earthquake, it was too slow. Almost like the earth itself was shifting, dragging something beneath it. I sat up, confused. My window blinds weren't moving. The water in my glass wasn't rippling. But the bed was shaking. I pressed my hand against the mattress. It wasn't coming from above, it was coming from underneath. Then I heard it. A deep, low groan, Not human, not metal, not pipes. Something else. I jumped out of bed and ran to the window. Outside, the street was still. No alarms, no flashing lights, no one else coming out of their homes. Just me. Then, silence. The shaking stopped, just like that. The next morning, I checked the news. No earthquake reports, no seismic activity, nothing. But I know what I felt. And I don't think it was an aftershock. I think it was something else. Something waking up. I live in a high-rise apartment building in Tokyo, 32nd floor. Tokyo is no stranger to earthquakes. They happen all the time, so often that people barely react anymore. Every office, every apartment, every school has emergency drills. You feel a tremor, you wait, and if it doesn't get worse, you go back to whatever you were doing. I had gotten used to them. Until that night. It was around 11 p.m. and I was sitting at my desk finishing up some work. The city outside my window was glowing with lights, neon signs, car headlights, the distant flicker of a train passing through. Then I felt it. A slight movement. My coffee mug rippled, the reflection of the city bending in its surface. The pendant light above my table swayed just a little. I sighed, probably just a small tremor. But then it didn't stop. The swaying got stronger. I grabbed the edge of my desk. The building was moving, groaning like an old ship in a storm. My bookshelf trembled. The glass of water next to my laptop tipped over. Then, a loud creak. The walls shifted. This was not a small tremor. I stood up, heart pounding, trying to remember all the emergency steps. Don't run, find shelter, stay away from windows. But before I could move, crack! A deep, sharp noise from behind me. I turned. The wall next to my bookshelf had split open. Not a little crack. A long, jagged tear running from the ceiling to the floor. And then, something moved inside it. For a moment, I thought it was just my eyes playing tricks on me. The adrenaline, the shaking, the flickering lights. But then I saw it again, a shadow shifting inside the crack. The floor beneath me vibrated. The shaking should have stopped by now. Earthquakes come in waves, they don't just go on and on like this. Then, another noise, a whisper. Faint, coming from inside the wall. I took a step back, my breath caught in my throat. Then, bang! The crack widened. And for just a second, I saw something. Something behind the wall. A shape. A figure. Watching me. And then, just as suddenly as it started, the shaking stopped. Dead silence. The crack was still there. Hidden, dark. Waiting. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, the crack had disappeared. The wall looked perfectly fine, like nothing had happened, like it had never been there at all. But I know what I saw, and sometimes, in the dead of night, when everything is quiet, I still hear it. That soft, faint whisper from inside the walls. And I wonder, did the earthquake wake something up, or did it try to set something free?